Om Shanti. Good evening. I had actually expected to be with you all in person in San Francisco this evening, but destiny prevails and I'm sitting across the ocean a few thousand miles away, but very much with you in spirit. And so a special greeting of love to all my sisters and brothers in San Francisco. The subject that has been selected for tonight is a very beautiful one. The state of grace. Just hearing those words, and there's a wonderful sense of grace. And what does that mean? I think we've all experienced it at some point in our life when we experience God's love carrying us through all situations. We feel that sense of protection. We experience blessings reaching us. We have the feeling of good wishes coming to us from our universal family, the human family, or maybe even just our nuclear family. That would be a state of grace, and I'm sure that we all experience that too. And so we have glimpses of it from time to time. Maybe a few days pass, a few weeks or a few months, but then things happen and then it feels as if that was another experience, and maybe it was just a dream and the reality becomes a very difficult one, harsh and a little bleak. But if we understand how it's possible to experience grace, then I think we could actually make the formula work for us so that we're able to stay in that state of grace continually all the time. And of course, if I'm experiencing that state of grace surrounding me and helping me and carrying me, then my relationships with everybody else around me are also of a very different quality. So it's not only me that benefits through the state of grace, but through my experience, I'm able to give benefit to everybody else that I come into contact with, whether it's family or work colleagues or in fact, even society at large. And so how does this thing called grace work? There's something that I need to do, and then there's something that comes from up above. And it's a relationship that works together. They say that if I take one step forward, God takes 1,000 steps forward to help me. And then there's another expression that's used, and that is that if I have courage, then God gives a lot of help. And both of these things are experienced in our lives, I know. But it was very interesting the other day when Dadi Janki was talking about courage and help. And she said that, yes, definitely, I need to maintain courage. If I lose courage, what's going to be my life? What's going to be my future? And so, yes, I must hold on to courage always, always. But there's another little ingredient that's going to bring the help that I would like to experience in my life. And that is honesty. If between courage and the combination of honesty, these are the qualities I carry within myself, then definitely, yes, I experience a lot of help reaching me. And so it seems that honesty has to be one of the qualities if I want to be able to experience the state of grace. Honesty with myself, honesty with the divine, and honesty with the family around me, whether it's my nuclear family, my spiritual family, all those with whom I interact. The state of grace is that in which my mind feels very comfortable. I am at peace with myself. How do I get there? It doesn't happen just by magic. It would be lovely if it did. But this little formula of 1 step and 100 steps and courage and honesty and the help, it's always good to keep this in mind. And what I need to do in terms of creating that state of contentment in which I feel the blessings of the divine with me, I can do something about it. In any given situation, it's not actually the facilities around me that either bring me contentment or take away my contentment, but rather it's my own consciousness and my own awareness that creates that contentment within my own inner being. And so that's a little bit of work that I need to do on myself inside, to be able to stay content. And this requires a deeper understanding of spirituality. It also requires a relationship with God. And if I work on these two things, on knowing who I am and going deep into myself so that I'm able to keep my mind peaceful and calm under all circumstances, no matter how big the challenges may be. In that state of calmness, then I feel very close to God. If, because of lack of understanding, I allow my mind to get into a state of upheaval, then it's not going to be so easy to experience the connection and closeness with God. Yes, when I'm peaceless and I call out to my parent to help me, I'll experience some peace reaching me. But creating a state of peace through using the right spiritual methods and creating that understanding that keeps my mind calm means that I'm receptive. I've tuned my consciousness to be able to connect with the transmitter, and the transmission of God's qualities is able to reach me. Without that state of peace being created, I'm on one wavelength and the vibrations that God is emitting are on a different wavelength, and so I'm not quite connecting, and so it's not actually happening. But I create the right consciousness and bring my mind to that elevated space of peace, and yes, I'm able to connect with the vibrations that God is emitting and all the qualities that are within the Supreme. The love, the truth, the happiness, the power, the purity, all these are able to reach me, and I'm filled with this experience. And so definitely in that state of awareness, my mind is very, very content. And in that state of connection with the divine, yes, I feel that aspect of grace in which, what more do I wish for? Everything that I had been seeking has been attained. They have a lovely expression. They say that there comes a state when you're so full and content that you don't even know what the word desire is. You're ignorant of the word desire. Just imagine coming to that state. And yet it's not so far away, because we've had a taste of it from time to time. You've had a glimpse of it. And so if I've been able to experience something even momentarily, it means that there's a possibility that I can build upon that experience and reinforce it and consolidate it and come to that state where it's with me always. And so to experience that state of grace, I have to care for my mind. I have to look after what's going on within it, because at the present time in the world especially, it's very, very easy to allow the mind to get affected and infected. There's bugs all around. They say that if you have a healthy constitution, then although there are bugs everywhere, you're going to remain safe, you're going to remain protected. Same thing. When the soul is spiritually healthy, then yes, we're living in an environment in which there's a lot of negativity, a lot of aggression, a lot of fear. All these things are rife. They're dominating the scenario at the moment. But what I have to do is not allow myself to get infected or affected. My experience has been that the easiest way to attain that state is again, using the canopy of protection that God offers. At one point, there was a very interesting message that had come to us in Mount Abu, and that was that God wants us to use Him. On a human level, nobody likes being used. In fact, we react very strongly against it. I don't want to be used by somebody. And if I'm playing the game of using someone else, then that's not a very pleasant thing to be doing at all. And yet here in this message, we were hearing that God wants us to use Him. And what does that mean? It means that everything that God is and everything that is within that Supreme Being is available for us. But instead of remembering to connect with the Divine, we go helter-skelter here and there and look for things outside and around and up and down. And the mind gets into a real spin, and it forgets that there is the possibility of protection and help. And so, to experience that state of grace means to remember that God is available for me. And all I have to do is to turn to the Divine, make that conscious connection, so that whether it's as my sweetest mother, my most benevolent father, the wisest of all teachers, or the gentlest of all companions, or the supreme guide and guru, so whichever relationship it is I choose, but at that moment of need, I connect, and that canopy of protection is all around me, keeping me safe. Safe from the enemy inside and also the enemy outside. Because sometimes we think that others are my enemy, and they're not really. But our attitude sometimes develops in that way. But to know that God's protection is with me, then whatever other negative forces from outside can't touch me. But the other very interesting thing is the enemy within. And we've all experienced our own demons and ghosts coming to us. But God's protection, again, to be aware of my most sweet friend, the one who's always available and ever able to help me. And at that moment, as I remember my friend, instantly I can feel that protection surrounding me. Just recently I was asked, if I'm constantly positive towards somebody, and yet somebody is constantly negative towards me, and it's not a situation in which I can say, okay, bye, I'm not going to see you anymore. I have to continue. It's a relationship which is within the traditional sense, and it has to be honored. I can't run away anywhere. What should I do at that time? How do I deal with it, with this negativity that keeps coming at me all the time, all the time? And I suggested a method that I had used myself, and that was to create an orb of light around the self. And so whether it's God up above, or God in front of me, or God with me, but to allow God's light to encircle me and to stay very much encased, enclosed in this orb of light. And so whatever was the attack coming from outside, it wouldn't actually get to me. And one of the things that happens if you try this out is that there's a state of non-reaction. Because otherwise there's aggression coming and I get irritated and upset or confused and I respond and I react. And hey, action and reaction and cause and effect have been set up, and it's going to go on and on and on. The whole story of karma is a non-ending and infinite story. Do I want to continue in that way? I'd rather not. I'd rather experience that state of grace in which I know that karma is being settled and no more is being created, but I'm moving towards a state of freedom and liberation. I'm definitely not going to get caught in any bondage. And so use God. That's God's offer to us, that He's making Himself available. And so take that light and surround yourself with that orb of light so that the state of grace stays with you. Non-reaction and the karmic account can be settled and finished instead of continuing. But the second thing, not even just the state of non-reaction, that's of course the first step and it's crucial. But the second step, being in this wonderful protection of God's light and having created that state in which I'm not reacting anymore, it's actually possible to move to another level. And that is the level in which I can feel the state of grace and I know that I'm protected and nothing's going to touch me, nothing's going to shake me, nothing can reach me. And from that higher space, what I can do is to create benevolent feelings, good wishes, pure thoughts. And I can actually send out those vibrations of good wishes and benevolent feelings to that other individual so that I'm actually helping the other individual to transform themselves also. It's totally incognito, invisible, unacknowledged. The other person isn't going to turn around and say, "Hey, thank you for making me feel peaceful again." But never mind, that's not what the purpose is. I don't need acknowledgement, I don't need that recognition. But what I can do is to actually send out those thoughts of benevolence so that they help the other individual. Because when somebody's going through a negative state, they don't like it themselves. They can't help themselves, but they definitely don't like it. It's not what they would choose to be doing, but somehow habit gets the better of them and that attack comes. But in a very quiet method of real friendship, a method of real love is to give them those good vibrations, and definitely they will reach them and we'll see a process of change happening within the other individual also. And so the state of grace keeps me safe, but it also allows me to help others around me. And so that consciousness in which I keep my mind peaceful and content, absolutely critical. Actions, well, human life is based on actions. It's not just what's going on in my head. It has to be also what's going on in my hands, in my life, in my work, in my activity. And to keep in mind that if I keep my thoughts in the awareness of my spiritual identity, then it's likely that my actions will be the actions that can give happiness to others. In the state of grace, what I'm doing is I'm sharing happiness with others. Because I am content and full, then what do I do in connection with others? There's nothing I need from them. Definitely not. But what I can do is to serve and give. And yes, I could give blankets, I could give medicines, I could give food. And where there's a need, let me do that also. So it isn't either or, but it's this and this. But together with doing all of those things, let me be able to share a little bit of happiness. If I can do that, that is an imperishable treasure that will stay with that individual till the end of their days. Let me be able to share something with them, maybe through words, maybe through a smile, whatever it may be, maybe by doing something for them, but give them a little bit of happiness. Sometimes I've found that it's a question of time. And that's important because when I give someone time, I'm really giving of myself. And that's why it's so important. But then also this is why we all say we're too busy, too busy, too busy. But no, what is the priority? Is the priority my paperwork, or is the priority the human being? Or is the priority making time to watch television, or is it time to help another? And so I can juggle around, and there'll always be windows in which I can see that there is the opportunity to actually give of myself to another. And when I give of myself to another, maybe it's simply listening to them. Maybe it's sharing a few thoughts with them. Maybe it's wisdom that can help them change their perspective also. I heard a very beautiful story the other day. This was the story in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and some of the people from New Orleans were airlifted to Cambridge, Massachusetts. And one of the ministers there had been allocated a particular area to look after, and a plane load of these people arrived at 3 a.m. in the morning, and they were very definitely feeling displaced. And they didn't even know until just an hour before exactly where the plane was going to land. When the plane took off, they weren't told, they didn't know, and then just before the plane landed, they were informed. And so they arrive in this strange place, and some of them had been in New Orleans, 3rd generation, 4th generation, and so it was a very dramatic shift. And this minister was caring for everybody with a big, generous heart, with a lot of love and happiness and cheer. And someone pointed out this man who hadn't moved, he hadn't eaten, he hadn't talked, he had sat aside from everybody else, sitting on a bench for a few days already. It was by now the 4th day, and they hadn't seen him move from there. And so the minister went across and sat beside him. And that's all he did. He just sat with him quietly. And after about an hour, this man got up and said, "Thank you," and walked towards the dining room. Something had shifted within this person because another human being made time for him. So giving of myself, making time, can save a person's life even. And so what is it that I can do? Maybe words, maybe a smile, maybe actions. If my intent is to give, then there'll always be some method I will find to be able to serve and to give. When I'm in the spirit of giving, then what comes back to me are good wishes from others. I receive much more than I'm actually giving. And so again, that contributes to creating a further state of grace. Of course, as usual, you find that when you find the way to make the machine move in the right direction for you, the repercussions are so wonderful and so powerful that that too is an incentive to keep moving. And so you experience grace and you share with others, and there's more grace that comes to you. And so really it's benefit for the self. It's absolutely nothing that I'm doing for another, but it's whatever it is that's coming back to me. Another aspect of this whole understanding of grace, my deep, deep connection and relationship with the divine. And so to be able to experience the unconditional love of the mother, but in return, from my side, my heart also filled with love for my Supreme Mother, able to hold the mother in my heart and give my heart to my mother, which means that my heart has to be very, very clean. when you offer a gift to somebody, you want it to be a very beautiful gift. You want it to be packaged very beautifully so that the other one can appreciate it. And if my heart is to be offered to my Supreme Mother so that I can experience that state of grace continually with me, my heart has to be very clean. And so meditation means spending a good amount of time, not just a little bit of time, but a good amount of time doing a lot of scrubbing. Not with my hands, not with my arms, but in here. And the way that I clean my heart is through God's knowledge, the wisdom that God shares. A deep, deep understanding so that I'm able to let go the things of the past, I'm able to forgive, I'm able to forget, I'm able to keep nothing but good wishes in my heart for everyone. The natural tendency of human beings today is to be critical. And within our whole system of education, we think that that's the way the intellect can be sharpened and refined. And that's true. If just simply on the intellectual level, yes, I'm given something and I analyze it and I pull it apart, I put it together again, I pick out everything within it, I critique it. Well, that's the training we've had. But unfortunately, it then becomes accustomed to doing this. Then it's not just a scholarly piece of work that I critique. It's not just, somebody's thesis, but it then turns on to human beings. And instead of appreciating the goodness of human beings, I critique, I criticize. And I say, but it shouldn't be like that. It should have been like this, or they shouldn't have done this, or their clothes, their hair, the way they sit, the way they walk, everything becomes wide, wide open. And so human nature at the present time, according to the social culture almost, is one in which we are ready to criticize and ready to comment. And my heart won't be very clean if this is what I'm doing. What happens is that I think negative things about somebody. I've already polluted my own mind. I speak negative things about somebody, and I've added to the pollution, I've spread it, and it's multiplied. And of course, it's then not going to stay limited to one individual. I tell you a secret, but you then tell somebody else, and so the whole thing goes. And the whole state of pollution continues to increase in an unending way. And the repercussion of that? Action and reaction. I've put it out, and so the clouds come back to me, and I feel heavy and uncomfortable, and I don't know why, but this is what's going on. And so the state of grace, that state in which God's love is with me, it's only possible when I've made sure that my heart has no ill feelings, no other feelings except feelings of benevolence and good wishes and goodwill. And so this is what I need to do in order to be able to receive the grace that God is offering. I've spoken about one relationship in depth, the relationship with the mother and the experience of God's love. But experiment with all the other relationships, whichever one it is that attracts you the most. Try them all. And each one of them will give you that experience of closeness to the divine. A closeness in which that company colors me and I'm transformed and the soul moves to its higher state. Experiencing grace means to be lifted from ordinary consciousness into elevated consciousness, and through elevated consciousness to be able to attain my own state of perfection. If we think about perfection, it feels very, very far away. But if I move in the direction of coming close to God and experiencing that grace, then perfection is very possible. Not just possible, but it becomes a reality. I hope that you yourself will experience that state of grace and be able to share the blessings of that with all others around you. Om Shanti.